Good morning, family.
Good morning.
How are y'all doing today? Oh, it's great to see you this morning. Today we wrap up this month we have is family enrichment. We focus on family, and we've taken a look at every voice has value. The generational connection is extremely important, and I mentioned the front porch fellowship, where you have great-grandparents and grandparents and parents and kids gathering together, folks in the neighborhood gathering together and just spending time, sharing life together, sharing wisdom together. And so I pray that we continue to have that mindset as we move forward. This evening, we will not have our worship service here in the church building. We're meeting at the park. All the instructions are out there, 4 o'clock. It is our Praise in the Park this evening, and praise God, we've got good weather. And so just please come on out. We'll really enjoy spending time with you. It is an honor to finish up this month, Family Enrichment, with my own little front porch fellowship. I'm here with my son and my wife, his wife Holly, our granddaughter. Holly's parents are here too. And it's a blessing to have this family gathering just in an intimate way, but what a blessing it is to see how the generations are connected together. Families are connected together because of Jesus Christ. And so this morning it is an honor to introduce once again my son Jason as our speaker of the hour. And so please let's give attention. And Jason, preach the word.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's great to have everybody here this morning. Thank you for inviting me back. I do 2 years in a row, but I don't do 3.
Oh.
So you'll have to find somebody next year. Last year, when I was asked to speak on this day, Dad called me and asked if I had a theme, and I didn't. I'm not good at themes. And so on the spot, to be funny, I started naming off all of the television shows I could think of that had family in the title, maybe just to scare him about what I was going to preach on. But I landed on Family Matters, and it kind of worked. And so that's what we talked about last year, if you recall, how the family matters and how what you do in the family matters. When Dad asked me to preach again this year, he didn't ask me what my theme was going to be. He instead gave me a theme, maybe not uncoincidentally, and it was strengthening the family. Our theme is strengthening the family, but in my mind, I instantly thought, well, of course, family ties. Right? But no. What does it mean to strengthen the family? To have a strong family? So I wanted to see what was out there, because I don't think that this is an idea that is unique to us as Christians. We're not the only ones in the world who want to have a strong family. Even secularly, people want to have a strong family. They understand that the bonds between family are important. And so I wanted to see what was out there. What research has been done to determine what a strong family is? And this is what I found. 5 characteristics of a strong family. The first is that strong families spend time together. That just makes sense. And it becomes more difficult, of course, as we get more spread out and as the family ages and grows. But a family who is strong needs to spend time together. Of course they do. The second is that a strong family fosters optimism. What they mean here is that there is a positivity within the family. None of us like to spend time with negative people. But especially within the household, sometimes we can be the most negative with the people we're closest to. And the idea is that to be strong in our family, we have to foster optimism, positivity about the future. The third is that strong families work on their emotion regulation skills. I love how this is phrased. Because it's not just about anger. All of our emotions need to be regulated to a certain extent, and especially within our households, within our families. Strong families are ones that work on this. Not perfect, not perfection, but work on trying to maintain that even keel, that balance, as we go forward with one another. Fourth, the strong families promote open communication channels. Communication was my undergraduate degree. It's all about talking to one another, opening up to each other, having an open communication channel, meaning that anybody can share anything at any time. Not all families are like that, but strong families are. And fifth, strong families show their appreciation for one another. You know, sometimes we don't say what we really feel about each other, how we really feel about each other. Sometimes we feel wonderful things about our family and never communicate that. But strong families do. They share that appreciation for one another. So I think this is a pretty good list. I think this is pretty inclusive of what a strong family is when we're talking about the general sense of family. But what's this list missing? What do we know that this list is missing? A strong family has God at the center.
That's right.
Now, all of these other characteristics are true, and ones that we should have and implement in our families also. But this is the key. A strong family has God at the center. And so I think about this verse that we usually apply often to marriages. You'll probably hear it in most wedding ceremonies. That though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves, and the cord of three strands is not quickly broken. We think about that with marriages, and really, if we're going to have a strong family, we need the foundation of a strong marriage. But what I think about this is what it means is that God has to be at the center of the relationships, the center of the family. Because if you see the one cord, the one strand in the rope, well, that's really got no shot. The two have a fighting chance, right? That's what Ecclesiastes says. You got a shot. It can defend yourself. But it's not until that third cord is added that you become unbreakable. God has to be the center of our relationships in our family. Has to be, if they're going to be strong. Because a strong family has God at the middle. And I want us to continue to remember that visual image. God being at the center of this. So the question then really becomes, as we've sort of synthesized it down to a simplest form, is how do we do this, right? The theoretical only takes us so far. The practical is what we really came here for this morning. How do we do it? What do we do? Okay, I've got an answer. I'm not saying it's the answer, but I have an answer. I think Jesus gives us the instruction, but I don't think we understand it. Luke chapter 14. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father, mother, wife, children, sisters, and even his own life, he can't be my disciple. So, here's the answer. To have a strong family, you got to hate each other. What? To have a strong family, you have to hate each other. This isn't my words. I mean, Jesus tells us that we are to hate our closest family. I can't hate my daughter. She's cute.
Amen.
Right. Can't hate my family. Now, I understand in some families it's easier than others. But this seems counterintuitive to our discussion today. It just does, on its surface. Now, this is not the first time you've seen this verse, I'm sure. And so most of the time when we look at this verse, we want to look at it in the context of what Jesus is saying in chapter 14. And he continues to go on in this vein, talking about the costs of discipleship. He tells two parables. One about the guy who wants to go out and build the tower, and he doesn't have enough supplies to finish it. Another about a king who gathers up his troops to go out to battle, and he is way outnumbered. Because Jesus is saying, this is the cost of being my disciple. It's going to cost you everything. And you need to make sure that you count that cost before you start the journey. That's how we explain this verse, correct? That's probably what you've heard. And that's fantastically accurate, but I think there's more here when it comes to our relationship. So how do we make this make sense? Why do we have a problem with this? And it boils down to that one word, right? Hate. Because for us in English, hate has a very distinct connotation. It is truly void of love. It's the opposite in many ways of love. And it's kind of a bad word. You don't want to think that you hate anyone. But sometimes we're okay with hating things, right? Sports teams in particular, right? Vegetables, perhaps. We're okay with hating some things. But the idea of hating a person makes us uncomfortable. And especially hating somebody who we're supposed to love. So we struggle with this verse. We struggle with that word. And so maybe we need to go and look at the essence of what that word means in the context here. And to do that, we take a look at the Greek. Not a native Greek speaker, but my understanding, the phonetic pronunciation of this is miseo. And miseo is translated hate very accurately. We don't really have a translation issue. It's used many times in the New Testament, and it means what we think of as hate. But the problem sometimes with words, and we have the same issue in English, is that you can have the same word that is written the same way and is said the same way, but means something else. Right? I think of lead in English. Do you mean to take the person by the hand, or do you mean the object lead? How do you know the difference? The context, right? The context of the sentence you're using it in. And so miseo means hate, but it can also mean love less. And that's an important distinction. Because for us in English, hate is the void of love. It's the opposite of love. But when we look at this in Greek and say, wait a second, what if it means love less? I'm a little more comfortable with that. Because now Jesus is not saying despise your family. He's saying love them less than me. Amen. I think we can get behind that. Now, I don't want to just take my word for it. So thankfully, Jesus backs us up in Matthew chapter 10. He says effectively the exact same thing as in Luke, but a slightly more palatable way for us. He says, the one who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And the one who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. You see how it's the inverse. We're saying in Luke 14, Jesus is telling us to love them less. In Matthew 10, he's telling us to love him more. That's the same thing. But maybe it helps us to digest it a little better if we think about Jesus asking us, telling us, commanding us to love him more. So let's get back to the point. How do we strengthen the family? That's what we're here to try to understand. How do we make our family strong? And we say, well, we have to have God at the center of our family. How do we do that? Well, we love God more than them. How do we strengthen our family? We love God more than them. But why does this still not make us feel good? There's still something that's nagging at us here, and I think it's because anytime we have a choice, we feel a little strange. It makes a lot more sense, in my mind, for God to be telling me to make a choice between him and things, stuff, right? We're okay. Not that we do it, but we're okay with that. If God is telling me that, okay, I need to choose between him and the things of this world, the stuff of this world, I go, okay, I'm going to struggle with that, but I can get behind that concept. I know. We know. We know that when God is telling us to store our treasures in heaven, we're like, okay, we still fight with that, but we're okay. We're always less comfortable with God asking us, telling us, commanding us to choose him over other people. Right? Because we feel uncomfortable with the idea of closing doors, of cutting off, of removing ourselves from people. And especially from things that we are supposed to love. We don't like this choice. And that's why this idea of having a strong family with God at the center by loving him more than we love them makes us a little uncomfortable because it feels like this. Does this family look very strong if I have to choose which arrow to follow? Because it feels like if I choose God, then I leave my family in the dust. That doesn't feel very strong, does it? But how do we make it make sense? Because is that not exactly what we just saw Jesus tell us to do? Choose who you're going to love more, me or them. It seems like God is asking us to do something impossible. To have a strong family based on him, but to love him more than the family, it feels like we're going to be disconnected from them. But here's the beautiful thing. If I choose God as he's told me to choose him, and my family also chooses him, then this is what happens.
That's right.
You see, it's only a choice if my family doesn't also choose God. You understand that?
That's right.
If everyone inside of my family chooses him, we're all pulling in the same direction. I only have a conflict when somebody doesn't choose God. And in that case, what are we supposed to do? Choose God anyway. You see, a strong family is one that chooses God over everyone else. Because here's what happens. If everybody is choosing God and loving him more, then we're all doing John 14:15. The Bible is not short on advice for families, right? Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Wives, submit to your husbands. Children, obey your parents, right? Lots of rules, lots of commands. Why are they so difficult for us to do? Because we're not choosing him first. You see, if we make that choice first and we love God as he's called us to love, then everything else falls into place. The family relationships and dynamic fall into line because we're all choosing the same person. We're all allowing him to set the example. We're all keeping his commandments. And you know, this is how it works. This is how it works in work and in teams, and anytime that you have groups together, it works if we're all pulling towards the same goal. It doesn't work when everybody's doing all their own thing. And so we have a strong family if we're all pulling in the same direction towards God. We're all keeping the commandments that he has given to us. Because a strong family chooses God over everything else. It's not that hard in theory. It's hard in practice. Does your family choose God over everything else? It starts with you, though. Do you choose God over everything else? Including the ones that are closest to you. So this morning, there's a real simple takeaway. You know, we like lessons that have like one takeaway, right? I mean, Dad probably has 7 points, but you have like one takeaway. And here's yours today. It's time to hate your family. It is. Well, you know that's not what we mean. It makes me think of salt. For most of human history, human beings had an issue with salt. We need salt. It's vital. It makes our cooking taste better. It helps preserve our foods. But the problem with salt is that when it rains or it gets humid, it sticks together. And you've known that, right? Every time that you reach your hand into a French fry bag, you come out all sticky with salt. Salt likes to stick together in moisture. So in 1911, the Morton Salt Company came around and developed a way for salt to stop sticking to each other. They added another element in there to help it stay uncaked. And so in order for them to advertise this to the people, they created this logo that you've probably seen. It's in your cabinet, I'm sure, of this little girl pouring out salt in the rain, to demonstrate the fact that their salt would not stick in humid climate. And in order to really sell it to the people, they came up with a catchphrase, a slogan. And it's one of the most exceptional advertising campaigns of all time. They said, "When it rains, it pours." One of the most well-known phrases that you have probably said within the last couple weeks to somebody else. But that's not how we use that phrase, is it? When we say to somebody, "Oh, when it rains, it pours," we mean that when something bad happens, more things tend to happen that are bad. Right? All of us have used that phrase that way. Did you realize you were spouting a 100-year-old ad campaign? That meant that salt would pour out in the rain. You see, this is what happens to phrases over time. Jesus says it's time to hate your family. And if you said that to your neighbors, they would be concerned for you. But what does that phrase mean? It means it's time to choose God over everything else. When we do that, our families become strong the way that God has designed them to be. If you're here this morning, it's an opportunity to choose God for yourself and the waters of baptism for the forgiveness of sins, to receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. But most of you are here this morning with a family who needs to choose God. Let today be the day that we start hating them like Jesus called us to do. If we can be of any service to you in any need, please come forward as we stand and sing.